Oldest river on the bottom. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. At this time, I'll call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Teresa, please call the roll.
Barber?
Here.
Brewer?
Here.
Buttonot?
Here.
Lewick? Saltzman? Tucker?
Here.
Abutala?
Here. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as it is in front of us tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Bob and Andrea, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, and may I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 19th, regular meeting?
So moved?
We got Andrea,
Second.
and we got Bob. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. This brings us to the non-agenda public comments. Do we have any, Teresa?
We do have, I believe, three of these.
All right.
The first one is Mary Erkins. And when you come down, if you could just state your name as you begin, so we have that for the captioner. Thank you.
Hello, Mary.
Hello.
Good evening.
Mary Erkins. Okay. I came to live in Oak Park in 1972 when Oak Park was putting their name on the record as a community that was invested in diversity, when a lot of the surrounding communities were acquiescing to white flight. And I knew this was where I wanted to be. I did leave for a few years and lived in Alaska, but I came back in 2001, happily, never to leave again. The reason I'm here before you tonight is to urge you to sign the referendum to get the General Assembly to revoke the preemptive statute, which makes it impossible to regulate pesticide use locally. In other words, we need home rule reestablished regarding the banning of pesticides. This action will not ban pesticide use. It will simply give our citizens the choice of whether or not we want to ban them. After an extensive research and study about toxins in our environment, especially those not regulated by the EPA, citizens in our community have tried to alert us to their dangers. A little backstory here. ChemLawn sued a small town in Canada for banning their pesticides because of the toxins. And the case went all the way to the Canadian Supreme Court, which ruled against ChemLawn. Now, Canada, as you may know, has the precautionary principle, as does most of the countries of Europe. And the precautionary principle doesn't allow a company to put a product on the market unless it can prove that it's not harmful. We in the United States don't have the precautionary principle. We have the opposite. A company in the United States can put a product on the market, and the onus is on the individual or a group of individuals to prove that it's harmful. Now imagine that. What individual or group has the time and the money to do the research and the capital to go up against these big conglomerates? It's unbelievable. So back to the backstory. What does ChemLawn do? They changed their name to True Green. True Green. Well, it sounds green, right? Right. Then they insidiously get 43 states to pass a preemptive statute prohibiting home rule regarding pesticide regulation. And Illinois is one of those 43. In other words, we in Oak Park cannot ban these toxic pesticides without first changing the state law. This is unconscionable. Maintaining this democracy becomes more and more demanding every day. All of us need to work to reclaim it. Much of it has been lost already. We have a chance to do it to some not so small degree tonight. The referendum that you've received some weeks ago is a vital step in getting the Illinois General Assembly to reverse the preemptive law abolishing home rule in the banning of pesticides. So tonight I ask you board members and you, Mayor Anand, to take action and to be the first to sign the referendum. Numerous environmental groups are encouraging their municipalities to do the same action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, would you call the,
Next is Emily Belcheva.
and who's after that, Teresa?
We have Linda Schuler from
Okay.
Housing Forward,
All right.
who's sort of connected with the...
Okay. Good
Hello.
evening.
My name is Emily Belcheva, and I've been a resident in Oak Park for 5 years. I started making elaborately decorated sugar cookies a couple years ago as a hobby, and I'm frequently asked if I sell them. And, of course, I looked up at the beginning of this, the cottage baking law for Illinois, and saw that unless I sold at a farmer's market, I'm not permitted to sell them if they're baked in my home kitchen. I have 2 young children, and I'm not able to manage something on the size of the scale of selling at a farmer's market. So I've restricted myself to giving cookies away, but I'm increasingly interested in the possibility of selling custom cookies on a small scale. And when I looked up the cottage baking law for Illinois again a couple weeks ago, which is the Public Act 097-0393, I found that an amendment had been made in 2014 called the Home Kitchen Operation Ordinance, Public Act 099-0191, Section 3.6, yes. This ordinance allows a person to sell certain baked goods made in their own kitchen directly to customers rather than at a farmer's market if it's small scale and has a cap of $1,000 income per month. And I understand that each municipality must individually adopt this ordinance. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself and several other gifted bakers I've met in Oak Park and asking that we adopt that ordinance so that we can share our talent with the community and make a little extra cash. Thank you.
Thank you. Would have loved to have sampled those cookies tonight.
I was thinking that'd be inappropriate to say. That's a bar. Nod, you stepped over it.
Our final non-agenda public comment is Linda Schuler, who is going to be accepting the award tonight. So I don't know if she'd want to come down now or...
Sure, and then I
Okay.
can read a proclamation after that. Sure. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Schor, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing Forward. In 1991, a group of compassionate individuals wanted to make a difference in their community by addressing unmet basic human needs for those with no home. In true Oak Park fashion, they formed an ad hoc group to explore the issue of homelessness in the community and how other communities were responding to the issue. 9 months after that first meeting, Tri-Village PADS was incorporated. On October 2nd, 25 years ago, they welcomed the unhoused and lonely into the PADS program as an alternative to living on the streets. The PADS shelter offered safe, overnight accommodations and 3 meals in area congregations which were staffed by trained volunteers. From those initial humble beginnings of food, shelter, and friendship, the PADS program grew. Today, the Oak Park-grown organization, now Housing Forward, has advanced into a leading provider of homeless programming in suburban Cook County, offering a full continuum of services: financial assistance, shelter, supportive services, street outreach, employment, and supportive housing. Our impact Last year, more than 1,900 men, women, and families experiencing a financial or housing crisis were assisted to either prevent or to end their homelessness. St. Francis of Assisi said, "Start by doing the necessary, then the possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible." So, as Housing Forward enters its 25th year, it is especially meaningful to be here tonight as well on behalf of the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition, sponsored by the Community Mental Health Board of Oak Park Township. The coalition is a multi-stakeholder group comprised of 30-plus organizations who share in the vision to end homelessness. This past year, with funding from the village, the coalition developed its first strategic plan to make homelessness in our community rare, brief, and one time. You can find a copy of the plan in your packet this evening, and we look forward to the public release of the plan in November, and an opportunity to present to you all in the future. You haven't presented the proclamation yet, but I will say thank you for that, recognizing our anniversary and for the village's continued support of our work in the community.
Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you. Okay. Any more public comments?
We are done with non-agenda.
Okay. This brings us to the proclamation for the night. It's a motion to approve a proclamation for Housing Forward 25th anniversary. May I have a motion to read the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
You got Angie and Bob. Housing Forward 25th anniversary. Whereas Housing Forward is a nonprofit organization that began 25 years ago on October 2nd, 1992, to serve men, women, and families who were homeless in the communities of Oak Park, River Forest, and Forest Park. Whereas Housing Forward's mission is to transition individuals from housing crisis to housing stability, and has grown to addressing the long-term solutions of homelessness, and whereas more than 15,000 people have been assisted in meeting their shelter, housing, and financial assistance needs, and whereas Housing Forward is supported by 1,100 volunteers and over 40 area congregations who have provided over 237,000 nights of shelter, over 674,000 meals, and supported efforts to provide over 316,000 nights of housing. Now therefore, I, Anan Abu Talib, President of the Village of Oak Park, and the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as Housing Forward's 25th anniversary celebration month, and encourage all citizens to recognize that there are homeless individuals and families in our community who need the support of their fellow citizens and from the private and public nonprofit agencies that serve them. And I'm going to present this to you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this brings us to the village manager reports. Kara?
I just want to make sure that the board saw within their packet calendars for the months of October, November, and December. And please let us know if there are any meeting conflict dates that we might not already know about. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Do we have any village board committees reports? Peter, you raise your hand, or is it?
Double checking the date.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem, take your time.
Sometime in November. The Colette and I were at the Collaboration for Early Childhood Governing Board meeting last week. And just so all of you know, I think this is a date change from what we had. The official tri-board meeting where ourselves and District 97, District 200 will all get together to review the progress that they're having. It has been moved to Wednesday, November 30th, 7 p.m., and it will be held at the new District 97 building. I think originally it was the week before or something like that. So I wanted to make sure it was on the public record so people who are interested in it can know about it, and also encourage all of us to attend so we can all get the official update. It's very exciting. They're actually making great progress on how they're doing. I can't remember the number. I want to say they have like 57% of all use in Oak Park and River Forest that have been screened, around 57 or 60%.
Yeah, I think it was close. It was over 50. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah. So they're really gaining momentum in terms of the charge, which is pretty exciting. We'll hear all about it on the 30th of November.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You just want to point out that Finance Committee this month is going to be very busy still, on the 10th, the 19th, and the 24th with meetings. I think that's right. Again, all open, public welcome to come, other board members welcome to come, but it's a very busy schedule for finance as we start to wrap up the budget at least.
Okay. All good? Glenn, you're looking?
No, I'm just
Okay.
writing
All right.
calendaring things, make sure I
Just
don't
making
forget
sure.
these.
Okay.
November 30th.
This brings us to the Citizen Commission vacancies. Let's see. May I have a motion to approve appointing some of these folks to some of these commissions or reappoint them?
So moved.
Second.
You got Peter and Andrea. Teresa?
The Community Development Citizens Advisory Committee, Phyllis Logan, reappoint as member.
If you're here, please raise your hand, wave at us so we know you are. Okay. You could.
Hello.
Thank you. Fire and Police Commission, John Hedges and Masaru Takaguchi, reappoint as members.
Okay.
I don't think they could make it.
No, we will know who they are if they were here.
The Historic Preservation Commission, Christopher Payne, appoint as chair.
Okay, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your commitment to the community. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda. May I have a motion? What?
I just wanted to say there were two comments related to the consent agenda.
Please do.
Okay, should we do those now? I'm sorry, not for the consent agenda, for a discussion later.
All right.
What's,
Wait a moment. No, it is for this consent. They both had to do with traffic signals. I'm sorry for the confusion. But I
Okay.
think this is the ones. Just a moment. The wrong set here. Okay, James Keel?
I'm James Keel of 407 Wisconsin Avenue in Oak Park. Thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. I want to draw your attention to Resolution 16314, where you are proposing to reject 4 bids that have come in to place traffic signals at the corner of Wisconsin and Washington. And I wanted to encourage you not to reject those bids, but to accept the lowest bid and get cracking on the job and get it done. And I wanted to give you some reasons why I think it's important that this project proceed. It's been under review by the Traffic Commission, this board, previous board members, and 2 traffic engineers at least in the state of Illinois with a lot of back and forth for, as I said, for at least 3 years. I don't think that prices are going to get any cheaper, and the lowest bid is $37,000 lower than the next highest bid, and $85,000 less than the next highest bid, than the highest bid in your packet. I think that there's an opportunity to save lives, to save damaged property by moving faster on this project than perhaps waiting to next year. It will assist Pleasant District in being more accessible to motorists and to tourists. They certainly brought this up in their public comments going back several years ago. And it will replace and revamp a very awkward intersection now where Wisconsin motorists are required to make right turns only as opposed to being able to proceed north and south freely through that intersection. The intersection, as you may or may not be aware, is afflicted with blinding sunlight in the early morning hours and in the evening hours that make it very difficult for motorists to see pedestrians in the crosswalks and adds a heightened level of risk to trying to cross Washington in the morning or in the evening. From my observation as a frequent pedestrian trying to cross Washington, at least 9 out of 10 motorists ignore somebody stepping into or standing in a crosswalk and just proceed merrily along their way. When somebody happens to stop by their own actions, it's nice to see, and I thank them. I think that by rejecting these bids today, you will add at least another year to the timeline, given the amount of time that it's required to get it this far. And I think it's also a safe assumption that Illinois, who you had to work closely with, your traffic engineer had to work closely with, is not going to simplify or make their requirements less stringent that possibly could reduce costs. I think that the nature of bureaucracies are to make things more difficult and more expensive. So again, I would urge you to proceed now. From my standpoint, the low bidder now has the opportunity to see what his competitors' bids are. And certainly he might have an opportunity, if you ask him to bid next year with a new budget, to raise his bid and therefore increase the cost to the village. I want to give my high compliments to your traffic engineer, Jill Giuliano, for keeping concerned community members informed about this project. You've got a very quality person in that job. And finally, I want to mention that if you proceed at some point to reduce Madison Street to 2 lanes of traffic, you're going to end up diverting traffic onto other east-west streets in the village. One of them, I think, that would be affected would be Washington. It's already heavily burdened with traffic during rush hour particularly, and I think that that's only going to make that intersection worse and make crossing by pedestrians even more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Carrie and Area McCarthy.
Hello. My name is Carrie, and this is Aria. 3 years ago, we came here to ask about the stoplight because we almost get run over on a regular basis trying to cross that street. In that time, Aria was diagnosed with cancer, and in those 3 years, she has actually been cured, and I still have no stoplight. I would really, really think that we would be saving a lot of lives by getting a stoplight at that corner. There are, I would say, in addition to the 9 out of 10 cars that don't stop, 9 out of 10 cars that come to that intersection do not obey the turn right only. They go across anyway. The police make a lot of money on tickets when they sit there, but they can't sit there all the time. Most of the people I know do it while I'm in the car with them, and I have to tell them, please don't, it's so dangerous. They don't understand that when they swerve around, people aren't expecting them to come from the direction that they're coming from. When cars do stop for us, the cars behind them go around. That is our road to get to Marion Street because we live on Wisconsin. That is our way to get to the YMCA. There are so many kids on our block and so many kids around there, and that's where the school buses are. And it's just been really dangerous for 3 years, and I really don't want to see it go another year. So that is my emotional appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're glad she's healthy. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That concludes the public comments.
With item I, does anybody feel that we could move it to regular and discuss it, or?
I'd be comfortable moving it.
Yes, sir.
I would actually suggest we move it to 2 weeks from now, and then in the interim, get some of the information, because I do want to get some of the background on why we think perhaps the bids would be lower coming in next time. And I know we're good about this, and there's probably good sound logic for that. But if we just move it and get some of the information in the interim, that's what I would propose, if people are comfortable with that.
Are you folks comfortable with that? Okay, so who's going to make the motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to withdraw I from consent agenda and reconsider it 2 weeks from now.
I'll second that.
Okay, take the roll. Or just all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, okay, aye it is, okay. Okay. This moves us to the consent agenda. With that out of mind,
Exactly.
we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by, now, take the roll.
Tucker,
Yes.
Buttonot,
Yes.
Barber,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Abu Talib.
Yes. Okay, just moving on to the regular agenda. And the, it's item Z. It's an update on the TIF strategic plan from the Civic Information System Commission and staff. May I have a motion? Huh? Oh, they say TIF? I am wrong.
Tip on the mind.
From IT. TIF on the mind, you're correct. On the IT strategic plan from the Civic Information System Commission and staff. Okay. Motion.
So moved.
Got Andrea. I need a second.
Second.
And
Second.
we got Peter. Okay.
It's just an update.
Oh, it's an update. I don't need a motion?
You don't
I'm working way too hard here, okay. All right, so let's discuss that item, or give us an update.
Sure. Alvin Nepomuceno, IT Director, is going to come down, and also I believe he will introduce some of the members of the Civic Information Systems Commission, which is your Citizen Advisory Board. As the board may recall, previously 2 meetings ago, I believe it was in September, the item was deferred for a couple weeks so we could have a little more time for conversation. And also as part of the Finance Committee's discussions related to the capital improvement plan, some elements of the IT strategic plan I think have overlapped, and part of the reason that we wanted to make sure the board could hear this presentation. And so the chair of CISC is here with us this evening, and then one of our other members. And so I'm going to let Alvin start. And I think he has just a brief PowerPoint, and then I'll let him turn it over if that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Alvin Nepomuceno, IT Director.
You could have a seat on the front there while he's talking, and then we can grab you if we need questions. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Okay, go ahead, sir.
So let me go through my PowerPoint presentation real quickly, and then we'll introduce the CISC members. So a little bit of history of the plan. There's a department review back in 2014, February. There were 93 organizational projects and priorities identified. We meet annually to provide status updates and opportunity to identify new projects. And in June of 2014, the Civic Information System Commission reviewed and accepted the IT strategic plan. Staff provides monthly updates during the commission meeting. And in August of 2014, the IT strategic plan was adopted by the village board. What is the plan? Well, it identifies and prioritizes core systems. There are 10 systems: telecom and cabling, GIS and MAD, or Master Address Database, permit license and inspection system, 911 CAD related RMS, video and key card security with the police and village hall video, parking technology, fiber optic network, customer relation management system, finance ERP, records information management. Those are core systems. Out of all the 93, we identified there were core systems that required to be done. The non-core systems and projects are completed as resources are available, and it's a multi-year planning document. Obviously, all these projects cannot be completed in 1 year. Here are some complete core systems. The GIS and Master Address Database system, we joined the consortium back in October of 2014. We rolled out GIS Map Office to the entire organization. I think it was April of 2015, and it became public access in May of 2015, and was also presented during the Day in Our Village. The telecommunication and cabling project, that core system allowed us to do a system-wide upgrade of our telephone system to VoIP technology. We recabled the Village Hall building as well as the main fire station. That was completed February of 2015. And the E91 CAD and related RMS records management system was completed by WSCDC as well as with the partner communities, and that went live back in September of last year, 2015. And last thing that was completed recently was the permit license and inspection system. That was the City View system that went live in May 6th of this year. Future core systems. We still have the video key card system. That was approved for 2016, and we're anticipating the installation to begin in a couple months. Financial ERP, that was approved for 2016 and 17 CIP. System has been selected and anticipated completion of next year. The fiber optics network, that's a proposed for 2017 CIP, is a 3-year project to upgrade the data communication infrastructure. And then we have the parking technology that's approved in 2017 CIP. We're seeking industry consultant for a unified parking solution. And records information management system is proposed for 2017 CIP and is anticipated to be completed next year. And the last thing is a citizen request management system. This is to be evaluated more thoroughly next year. The strategic goals of the IT department, well, there are 4 of them. The innovation, IT empowers other departments by providing tools that inspire innovation and promotes learning. Operational excellence, IT develops comprehensive technology solutions and management practices of systems. Customer focus, IT delivers solutions that are customer focused and driven by the needs of the village. And exceptional public services, IT supports day-to-day operations and emergency response efforts to ensure the health and the welfare of employees, residents of Oak Park, and visitors to the community. And with that, I want to introduce the CISC chair and also one of the CISC members.
Thank you.
You want to introduce yourself?
My name is David Gulbranson. I've been on the CISC for a little over 4 years now. I did 2 terms, and then when our previous chair, John Schuler, retired, I somehow got volunteered to take over, and so I've been the chair since spring of last year.
Good evening, everyone. I'm David Baker. Was appointed in January of this year to CISC, and I'm a broadcast engineer. I work for the Village of Addison in their television facility. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. I have an engineering background and arts background as well, television production.
Well, thank you for your service and commitment to Oak Park. We appreciate it.
Are there any questions I can answer or any other inquiries?
We didn't know if you wanted staff to go through, beyond the PowerPoint, some of the specifics of the plan. We know the Finance Committee had significant focus about how the fiber optic network is being proposed in the current fashion, whether that is something that needs to be undertaken in the 2017 year to initiate. And so we wanted to, I guess, have an opportunity for the board to kind of guide what area of interest they'd like to focus on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that was the genesis of this, was the more specific fiber optic conversation, because it's a big ticket item. I think finance is going to continue to look at that in the coming weeks versus a lot of other budget items that are going to be proposed as well. And if in fact we want to go this route, and by the way, I wanted to thank Alvin and Dave for the memo. That was very helpful and very informative. Seems like there are some other possibilities that I think we should talk about too. But I think at the finance level, it might be a question of timing more than anything, but those will probably be conversations that we have to figure out in connection with a bunch of other moving pieces in the budget. At least that's my take. If people are interested in having or have, I think one of the reasons we then at Finance Committee suggested that this be brought to the board as a whole is because this is a very comprehensive plan. It's just not about the fiber optic system. You guys are doing a lot of work at the CISC, and we appreciate it. And this is really setting, the community for the next 20 years, so it's important, and these are important decisions. So I think we wanted the board to be fully informed on everything that was going on, in addition to how it fit into the fiber optics. So I don't know if that helps set the table a little better for our fellow board members who weren't at the Finance Committee.
Andrea.
I was sad to have missed the Finance Committee meeting where you actually discussed fiber optics, but since you're here tonight, maybe you can give a 5-minute version of what the project looks like, what alternatives have been explored. I know this is just the very beginning of that conversation and it will continue on, but I think a snapshot would be helpful.
So the fiber optics network, that is basically a high-speed data network communication medium. We have a fiber optic network, but it was built 15 years ago, and it's outdated. We're looking to upgrade that, and that was part of the proposal. We contacted 14 different other municipalities to see what they do, and basically 13 of them does mix of fiber optics, coax cable, and telephone systems. And so pricing-wise, and we looked at the pricing, what the speeds, what are the issues, and so they do a mixed bag. Any community that has the opportunity to do fiber, they're grabbing it because they know this is the future. That is the technology that's used by all telecommunication vendors. They even use it to cross oceans. It is the future of network communication. We have a closed system. We maintain a closed system because for us, we can know exactly who has access, and also when we develop, if it's approved and we upgrade our system, we can say who has access to it, beyond just the village, just beyond the municipality. So it's a long-term investment. The way that technology is going, even experts says that the amount of data that is being utilized by consumers as well as offices and businesses continues to grow. And so we looking at fiber to be able to lay down the future of the community's growth as well as the municipal growth of using the technology. It is basically what's needed for all our facilities to communicate from one another to another, to make sure that we don't have silo operations, make sure we have some redundancy so that we can provide the level of service not only for the day-to-day operations of the operating department, but also to service the community.
But the investment is specifically for Village of Oak Park, right? And I don't mean the village, our municipality is in our jurisdiction, correct?
Yes.
Right. Just Village, right. So
Us.
what are alternatives to that, thinking more broadly in the community? What have we explored in terms of other cost-effective alternatives?
So we are in early discussions with D97. They are looking at doing some other service fiber, building their own fiber network. They are currently spending $168,000 a year for using Comcast service at a slower speed. So if you look at that cost, if fiber is 1.6 is at my estimated project cost, and they're paying $168,000, then in 10 years we're at even. But we think fiber is going to last 15, 20 years. So that is one alternative, is join with D97 of how can we do this project together, or do we do their service? The service that they're talking about is E-rate. Once again, is another vendor. They restrict on who has access, what bandwidth. So we have to determine that. It's nice to, in my opinion, it's nice if we have our own fiber, we have it secure, and if we can share the cost and expand that use for other services that the community can benefit from. I think in the long term it's a benefit to the entire community.
I don't have any other questions right now, but I might
Okay.
have follow-up
All right.
questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I kind of want to follow up on the D97 point, but also, I guess, other benchmark projects that we should be aware of. So say we decide not to work it into this budget, and if we wait a year on this, because I think that's a reasonable alternative. I'm not saying that's what is going to be decided, but I think there's been some discussion around that. Are we possibly missing a window of opportunity to work with D97? That's one that I don't expect an answer now, but maybe we can look into that. And then in terms of any other major road construction projects, I know the Lake Street project is coming up, but that wouldn't be till 2018, so I would assume approved budget next year for the 2018 would still work. But if there's anything else that we need to be aware of where we're missing a window of opportunity with the fiber.
Yeah, I certainly think the board has the ability to take time to evaluate this decision, and you shouldn't feel rushed into it. I also think that staff is being early in their discussions with the board because we know that the lead-up time can be cumbersome. And the Lake Street project, because of the number of facilities we have along that corridor, parking, for example, we would want to know in the design phases if we felt it was reasonable to be talking about it. But I do think that there is always that opportunity for partnership with another taxing body. But yes, each government entity is working at their own speed and pace and timing a budget. And so, you know, taking some time would give us that opportunity to sit down with them and really focus in. Those are my two concerns.
Yeah, and if for some reason D97 has to make a decision in the coming months, I mean, we should.
You could revisit anything,
Yeah.
that you put on hold.
The only thing I want to add is that, yes, we don't want to rush you. Just one thing that we're just concerned about the electronics. You know, we can't keep on pushing it back.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So,
Peter.
Beyond 97, have you guys had any discussions of like 200 or parks or the library? Because I know that I'm not as sure about parks, but I know that 200 and the library have similar information needs.
Yes, we've been, I call it an IT cog. We've been meeting on and off, talking about networking and everything. So we've been meeting for, I guess, a good 3 years. And so finally we got to a point where, okay, who's really seriously looking at this, you know, saying funding-wise, the organization. And it was really D97 and the village. The others would like it, but it's just getting at that level of resources that each organization has to commit to. Obviously, we have our own timeline, you know, we've been using our electronics, and we're just trying to proceed and not get caught in a position where we're in a dire need of some solution.
Okay.
Well, I'm of the opinion to push it back to next year for many reasons. One of them, it seems like you're not totally ready to go on with D97. Two, it's going to take more than a month or two. Three, the village manager and the CFO are still trying to figure out how to give us a balanced budget and not committing to $1.6 million right now, which is 1/3 of it would be for this year or for next year, would relieve some of that tension. The highway is working right now. When I asked you last time how much money did you spend to fix it or repair it over the year before, and it was $2,000. So if you spend $2,000 on a road like this to just maintain it, it's not totally bad. And we haven't really gotten yet from you exact information from other sources on if we outsource it, it would be more effective or less effective, more efficient or less efficient. I heard you say it would be nice to have it. There's a lot of things that would be nice to have. But, you know, we have limited resources. We're trying to balance the budget, address our pensions. And I think if we make the decision to tell staff, don't waste any more time on it this year, push it back to next year, let's focus on the other things that we need to work on, I think would be doing the staff a big favor and make him more focused on all these other issues. And we'll give you more time to tighten the screws with D97. And if D97 is spending at $160,000 right now on Comcast, if they're going to come with us, we need to show them they can spend less, because they're not going to just spend 160. I won't, if I was them, just switch to pay the same amount of money. I would do it if it was better and less expensive, and if I have a little bit of a say on how it's going to be built. And so it seems to me that it's a premature project to be brought to the board and to keep the village manager and the CFO, out there without totally full information. So that's what I recommend, but it's just, we have limited resources in time and in money. And the budget needs to be done, and needs to be done within a month or so or less. And so let's focus on the things that we are seriously thinking about doing.
Let me just explain what D97 is trying to do with E-rate. It will not be $168,000 a year. It
Well,
will be
let's
much less.
cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's figure out what they're going to do and if they're committed or not. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to make a decision to do it with or without them, or not do it at all. But let's find out for sure whether they're a player or not. I mean, you don't have a contract signed by them, do you? Do you have anybody that wrote you any note saying that I'm going to do it with you?
No, I do
All
not.
right, so you got nothing, as far as I'm concerned. You got words. It's not going nowhere. So so I think, the board needs to, if the board wants to make a decision and just push this particular issue back to next year, and we can address it next year when we have fully vetted all information and find out whether it's better to do it on our own or to have somebody else do it. Yes, ma'am.
I certainly think it warrants additional information, but just procedurally, is this something that still needs to be determined at a finance committee level?
The next item on tonight's agenda is the presentation on the CIP. So the village board, in the 5-year CIP plan, which you would likely be asked to adopt in 2 weeks, should at least have that plan reflect the intentions moving forward. The finance committee did not finalize their collective decision of whether to keep funding in 2017 or not, and then ultimately it would be adoption of the budget document. So, tonight is part of the CIP discussion. Some feedback or consensus on that document is helpful, but it really would be more of a decision on October 17th, I believe, is the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
But with another finance committee meeting in between where we could.
You do have another
could-
meeting in between that you could also, as the finance committee, then make a formal recommendation.
Back out to the board if people are comfortable with that. And I know trustee Salzman was interested in this issue, and he's not here tonight, so maybe that's the way to approach it.
All right, yes, Peter?
I do want to say, in a perfect world, I'd like to be able to move forward this quicker, because I think that one of the things that does happen a lot is we tend to delay and delay and delay until it's at the point where you have to do it. And I think it's a village thing, it's a personal, it's just the way people are. I have not been going to the finance committee meetings, so I'm not sure some of the discussions, and it sounds like we're going to be pressed in order to try and kind of keep things going as it is without this kind of an expense. Is that basically it? So doing something like this right now is going to completely upset the apple cart.
Pretty much.
It's tight,
Well, it sounds like it's more than tight, I guess. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's sort of like...
That's why we have 3 more meetings.
Okay. So I guess that's part of the challenge for me, not knowing all the other factors that are going into finance. And I trust you guys, so if you're saying that this is going to be a major hindrance if we're trying to do it, then I think we should pass. Tight is a little bit different, though, because tight kind of tells me, hey, we can still make it work. We'll have to find some other things to cut or something, but I was getting the impression that this was going to be a major, major issue, and I don't think I want to take that on. So maybe the finance committee can kind of expand on that. Is it just really a tight thing that we can make work, or is this really the kind of thing that's going to be, I don't want to say devastating, but it's going to create harder choices, significantly harder choices to make if we were to try and move forward with it in 17?
I think it would create harder choices. It's not, while we understand that as technology ages, it becomes useless, and we are at the point where we are well beyond, or at least relatively close to most of the useful life, the end of the useful life for our system now. We haven't necessarily seen the information that gives us confidence in terms of which way to go relative to replacing the current system. And I think that's what's needed, that information to make sure that whatever decision we can recommend to the rest of the board will take into consideration, the need for the system and how soon the system needs to be replaced, and budget constraints. So that's what we're looking at. And I think right at the moment, I just in my view, we haven't seen anything that says it needs to be in this budget, this upcoming budget.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Okay. All right, so.
But I don't speak for all of the finance committee.
No, you're.
I just wanted to address a couple of points that were raised by various trustees. The first was that when Alvin approached us with this and we looked at the IT strategic plan and specifically the fiber optic plan, we did feel that there's definitely an opportunity to explore working with the other taxing bodies. We don't think that it's a good idea for either the village or D97 or D200 or the Park District to all go their separate ways on a project of this magnitude. It doesn't make any sense. It's wasting tax money by multiple bodies. So we definitely supported exploring consortium ideas or working with other taxing bodies, and I think that's absolutely the way to go with a project of this magnitude. But one of the other concerns that Alvin had raised that I wanted to make sure that the board understands is that all of the equipment that currently operates the backbone, and it's called a backbone because it supports every other system. If the backbone fails, village IT fails. All of the equipment that currently operates that backbone is what's called end of life, which means it's no longer being supported by the manufacturer. So basically what that means is you're driving a car that if the transmission falls out of it, you're going to a junkyard to replace your transmission. You're not going to be able to buy a new transmission for that car. And that's part of the reason that we felt this had some urgency, because right now all of the equipment is end of life. Yes, the network itself needs to be upgraded, but the concern is that if you don't redesign and redeploy a network of this magnitude overnight. It is a multi-year project, funding spanning multiple years, and the longer you wait to start the groundwork for that, part of which requires money for planning the network, hiring the consultants who are going to design the network, as time increases, your risk of a failure, a catastrophic failure, also increases. And I think that was the major motivating factor for trying to make sure that the project was approved and started sooner rather than later. And that would be my only concern.
Thank you. All right. So we'll just pick it up in the Finance Committee, and we'll make a recommendation to the board. We'll move on.
Yeah, so we'll make sure next Monday on the 10th, you're focusing on pension discussions. We'll also allot time for the Finance Committee to provide some direction relative to the fiber optic portion of the capital improvement plan.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really
Yeah,
do appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I like that passion, David, there. That's good. Okay. This item A is a review the recommended five-year capital improvement plan, 2017 through 2021, and direct staff to prepare the necessary actions for approval of the plan in October 2016. Do I need a motion? No motion. It's a motionless day tonight. Okay, let's go. Kara.
So we have a very brief PowerPoint presentation that CFO Draftsner is going to give you. It's more about making sure everybody is informed about what the purpose of our capital improvement plan is. We want to make sure that the board understands on the October 17th agenda, we would like a motion to accept the plan, and it really does serve then as a foundation for some of the budget work that is also going on in the Finance Committee that will ultimately come to the full board during the month of November. So I think we'll turn it over to Steve, and there's about a dozen slides, but we can go through these pretty quick. It's not too lengthy.
Quick is good by me. Hi, Steve. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Stephen Drasner, CFO. So as Kara mentioned, we have a very brief presentation, and then we will open it up to any questions regarding the budget process or our CIP document. Sure. All right, so an overview of the process. So the village is on a calendar year end, which is...
Can you just go ahead and go to presentation?
Start slideshow. Slideshow at the top. Go all the way across the slideshow.
Right there.
There you go.
From beginning.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
All right. You got to be on the IT commission there. Glenn. Okay.
All right, so we are in a calendar year end. Our objective is to obviously adopt the next year's budget prior to the end of the current fiscal year, December 31st. We bring the recommended or proposed budget to the village board prior or at the first meeting in November. And we have a recommendation for specific budgets by fund and account. So we're going to just briefly talk about the capital improvement plan, which is a multi-year document, and it provides a method of identifying and summarizing all the village's capital projects going out 5 years, as well as the village's most immediate needs for the FY17 budget year. Although the CIP summarizes 5 years, it's only the first year that's being appropriated for budget purposes. The CIP budget or document by itself is not a legal budget. FY17 enterprise fund projects are appropriated in the water and sewer fund or parking funds, and non-enterprise projects are typically appropriated in one of the four capital improvement funds or special revenue funds. Not only does the adoption of the CIP document assist for planning purposes, but it also allows the village staff to begin their engineering and design work and develop RFPs and bidding documents over the winter in preparation of spring proposals and bidding. There are four types of CIP or capital improvement funds that are funded through general operating revenues, which include the building improvements, the fleet replacement, the equipment replacement, and the general capital improvement fund, which captures all other projects. In the current fiscal year, I think that should say 2016, our total capital improvement projects totaled approximately $33 million, which equated to 20% or 21% of the village's budget for the fiscal year. The main capital improvement fund has two dedicated revenue sources, which include the village's home rule sales tax of approximately $2.6 million a year and its local gasoline tax of about $800,000. The balance of the capital expenditures are primarily funded by grants and bond proceeds. If a CIP expenditure falls under one of the enterprise or special revenue funds, that fund's own revenue source pays for those projects. For example, if it's a water or sewer project, that would be paid primarily by the water or sewer revenues in that fund. In addition, should it be necessary, enterprise funds can also issue bonds to help fund these projects. The CIP document was provided to the board at the September 19th board meeting, as well as reviewed at two prior Finance Committee meetings. There will also be additional discussion on one specific project related to the fiber optic build-out, which we touched on previously. And that concludes my short presentation, and I believe we will just open it up to any questions on the process, or if you want to go over specific projects within the CIP document.
Carrie, you have anything to add to what Steve? Okay.
No, I think we just always like to kind of give that baseline information to sort of help frame what those capital
Sure.
projects include.
Great discussion on the board. Questions? Yes.
I just have a quick comment. I'm always impressed by the level of quality of the capital improvement plan document, how much information and detail is there. And I believe it's always available on the website. People can look and see, if I remember correctly, scheduled when alleys are going to be improved, et cetera. So when residents have specific questions about when their streets are going to be improved, that's the document they would go to get some of that information. Is that fair to say?
That's the CIP document has the greatest amount of detail, which lists each project, and it shows the extended budget going out for the 5 years.
Yeah. So that's just my way of sharing with the community that that information is there, and it's a great document. So thank you for all your work that you put into that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, other comments or concerns?
Just a couple of things coming out of, again, this came out of Finance Committee, so I think this was an opportunity for the board to see where things stand right now. I think it's important, Steve, to, first of all, great PowerPoint, love the pictures. The rest of this, I think one of the things we're trying to stress again is the continued emphasis on streets and alleys and things like that. We ratcheted that how many, 2 years ago now, was it?
Sir.
2 years ago, and I think those numbers continue to play out. How much longer will that kind of ratcheted up, I guess is the phrase I'm going to use, pace continue?
Yeah, it was a total of a 5-year plan. I'm looking at Public Works Director William-Nicky because he gave us the 5 sign.
In for two.
Yeah, 2017 will be the third year of
okay.
the enhanced level,
Okay.
and then it'll be conclude in 2019.
Okay.
And I think the Public Works Director and Village Engineer have, spent considerable time on the plan because they really are able to then help provide a roadmap to the future of what we should be doing with our infrastructure. Being a 115-year-old community, just from the date of incorporation, doesn't even capture the age of a lot of infrastructure that was built before Oak Park was incorporated. And so that kind of constant focus on the investment is very important. And we have been able to identify in the alleys and streets how we're measurably improving the overall condition of those very important infrastructures.
Thanks.
People are very happy with that.
They are.
Because everywhere you go in the village now, you will see the streets are being fixed, the alleys are being fixed, and we're not moving as fast as we'd like to with some of the other alleys and the streets, but we'll get there. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Really sort of a question to know, and I know this is in the document, but since you mentioned that the 2016 expenditures total $33 million, what is our anticipated expenditure for 2017?
I believe 2017 in the main CIP fund is similar to what we budgeted in the current year. And then I would have to do a comparison for the enterprise and special revenue funds. I don't have that information with me, but I can do a side-by-side comparison for the board, so you can see that.
It's $16 million in the pure capital fund, and so I think that the $33 million was from 2015, but it did include the enterprise funds for parking and water sewer, and that's really how you get up that higher amount than what's in the pure capital fund. Budgeted in the CIP for 15 was $11 million, so that 33, a substantial portion of that was TIF, water, sewer, and parking.
We expect or anticipate a similar split for distribution, I should say, for 2017. Maybe with some reduction in TIF?
Yeah, I think what we should go back and look specifically, but Madison TIF, in this particular year, we've had the expenditures on the partnership with D97, which have been substantive. And then in 2017, we would expect to see improvements around the improvements to the street alignment, the redevelopment, hopefully, of Oak Park and Madison begin, and those funds being improved for there, as well as the underground infrastructure. So that would be a TIF expenditure that will be significant. And then you continue to see within the downtown TIF the redevelopment of Elevate Oak Park, or what we often call the Colt West Gate. That's included in the downtown TIF budget. And I'm trying to think, Steve, where the Lake and Forest Garage debt, whether that would be considered a capital purchase or that would be in the debt service fund.
That is considered a capital improvement, and we actually have a specific fund for just the lake and forest, and that's where all that expense is allocated.
So that's a $10.5 million expenditure for a single item, but it also leveraged an $80 million private investment and replaced a dilapidated garage that was at the end of life.
Right. I just wanted to talk that through so everybody would have a sort of an idea of what direction we're going in for 2017.
All right. Any other comments? You're good. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks,
we appreciate it. Okay. Bring us to the last item, and this is a motion to concur with the Transportation Commission's recommendation to upgrade the two-way stop signs to all-way stop signs at the intersection of Berkshire Street and Grove Avenue, and direct staff to prepare the necessary ordinance. Motion?
So moved.
Andrea? Second. Bob? And I see here the staff doesn't agree, right? Okay, Kara.
Thank you. I will let the village engineer, Bill McKenna, come down and explain. There is a nuance to the recommendation. It was a petition-driven request for the stop sign to be upgraded from the two-way to the four-way. And staff is really referencing the recommendations or parameters of the Uniform Traffic Control Manual and why the disparate recommendation. So
We don't have any public comments on this particular
Nothing.
item.
Everybody's
okay,
gone
fine.
home.
All right, good. Okay.
Good evening, Bill McKenna, Village Engineer. As Kara said, this item's for upgrading a two-way stop to a four-way stop to concur with the Transportation Commission recommendation. It's the intersection of Berkshire and Grove in the northwest part of the village. The village staff received a petition in May of this year to upgrade that stop sign from the residents. That went through the Transportation Commission, and ultimately the Transportation Commission recommended 4-1 to upgrade the stop sign there. Staff's concerns with the recommendation are based on the traffic data there. We don't feel that there's necessary speeding, traffic accidents, or safety concerns to warrant a stop sign. We think those kind of traffic control devices should be installed on an as-needed basis, not to address speeding concerns. So that way, when a stop sign is installed, it has more compliance when there's an actual need for it.
And I should have introduced the Chair for Transportation Commission, Jack Chalabian, is here too this evening. I didn't see you, Jack. It's dark in the back. Sorry.
He was hiding.
All right.
So I could go over some of the data that we gathered for this that supports the staff recommendation, and then I'm sure Chairman Chalabian would like
I think Peter has a question for you.
Okay.
Well, it was more a question. I read through everything that we shared. Thank you. I was curious as to what had really started it from the community, the block perspective, in terms of why they felt they needed. I get that there's heavy traffic and all that, but was there a particular incident or something that really sparked the whole conversation?
I believe it's safety concerns. They are near a school, children crossing the street, a perception of high speeds on Grove Avenue. Grove Avenue, the traffic data was showing speeds of 28 to 29 miles per hour. Berkshire is a slower street there with, I believe, 23 to 26 miles per hour for the speeds that we collected on that street. The traffic volumes were well within the normals for residential streets, with Grove upwards around 1,200 cars per day, and Berkshire about 700 cars per day. We did look at a 3-year accident history of the intersection. There was only one accident in that 3-year period. There was a right angle collision there, but based on the accident report, the car going on Berkshire said their brakes failed, and that's why there was an accident there.
Okay. So, and that accident that wasn't the accident that sparked the whole discussion, though?
No, it was a resident petition-driven
Okay.
process.
So I guess I'm still trying to understand, and I know the residents aren't here, but it sounds like there was this ongoing concern that finally just turned into, we've got to do something.
Correct.
Okay.
The speeding concern seems to be
Sure.
what the letter says.
The predominant concern, yes.
Andrea?
How far is it
Well,
from?
I'm
No, it's
sorry,
okay.
you're not
Well, I'm
done.
sorry, the only other thing I was going to ask, and I know in one of the documents we got, there were all sorts of different options that were discussed, including increasing police presence and actually ticketing everything. Have we done anything like that to try and?
Staff did recommend increased enforcement to address the speeding concerns. As far as the recommendation from the commission, it was more to upgrade to a four-way stop. We were looking at increasing enforcement there as a short-term solution while we work through a traffic calming toolbox to see if there's any calming measures that we could install at that intersection prior to upgrading to a four-way stop. It's very hard to reverse the decision to remove a stop sign, so we are trying to use increased enforcement as a way to get us to that decision point.
But I guess I'm still confused. So have we, I know there are a couple different options. You can have greater police presence, actually start ticketing people. You can put the little signs up that kind of warn people. Have we done any of those things yet?
We did do a Keep Kids Alive 25.
Okay.
I would have to follow up with police to see if they've done increased enforcement at that intersection.
Okay. As far as you know, though, we haven't.
I don't know offhand, but I typically think as soon as they get the request through the engineering staff, they rotate through those. I think that, when you have these very grid intersections, you notice the police cars sitting there, so they get a lot of compliance just by having the presence there. So we might not see increased traffic data, but we can find out and let you know for sure.
Okay. Because the reason I ask, I'm pretty familiar with that section there. I don't hang there a lot, but I know it. Unlike some of the discussions we have where I know as we get closer to North Avenue, there's a lot of concern about people who are cutting through Oak Park and everything. I would assume that most of these folks are area residents who are either going to school, going to Man, or going to work or whatever. So it seems like it's definitely a local, it's ourselves. And I think I'm just curious if we had been able to actually implement some things to help try and remedy it before we got to this point, because some of the things you're talking about seem like fairly reasonable ones to do. Having the police go over there and ticket for a while would frustrate some people, but it would certainly solve part of the problem, even if it was more short term, and get people in the habit. And same thing with the slow signs and things that we've done in other parts of town to help try and do it. And I was just wondering if it sounds like we haven't necessarily done any of those things yet before we get to this. That's
correct.
Okay.
Andrea?
Can you just explain, how many blocks away from the school is this intersection?
So the school is one block to the west. This is at Grove and Berkshire. Man School, I believe, is at Kenilworth,
Kenilworth,
and
correct.
Berkshire.
It's actually 2 blocks.
Two
Yeah.
blocks.
It's Grove and, yeah.
Have you had any feedback or communication with the school about the issue?
There
Or with
was no
DD7?
incidences of accidents occurring.
I think there's a stop sign at the school in Kenilworth and Berkshire, right? I think
Yes,
so.
there's a four-way stop at Kenilworth.
Okay, so the school
and-
hasn't raised any concerns about this particular intersection?
Not to my knowledge. I
Not
can
as
follow
far
up with
as you know.
staff.
Okay. What are the
No,
drawbacks
so-
of installing? I'm trying to understand why not? What's the risk?
From staff's perspective and kind of to follow uniform traffic control devices, if you install stop signs where they're not really warranted and there's not a need for them, you tend to get less compliance. You get more rolling stops through there. You get less compliance with that stop sign, which can create a safety hazard. If you as a pedestrian think you have the right to go out there and it's a stop-controlled intersection, if you don't get compliance, you can get some accidents with that. Same with vehicle accidents. So we want to install those where they're warranted and necessary so that we have, increased compliance.
You mentioned the toolbox, the calming toolbox. What other tools are there besides additional enforcement by police?
At an intersection like this with speeding concerns, there are limited options. You would be looking at doing pinch points, like curb bump outs there to restrict geometry, which would kind of make a driver want to slow down because things get kind of constrained. Those would be the type of options we'd be looking at in a situation like this. You could do traffic circles, stuff like that. Anything to physically change the layout of the road to get drivers to want to slow down.
I'm a little surprised there aren't residents here tonight.
Yes.
I'd love to hear from Jack.
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Jack.
So Jack, we hear all the reasons now why we don't need a four-way stop sign, but your commission determined we should have a four-way stop sign.
So, here's the thing, trustees. When we deliberated, we listened to the community, and when a number of the neighbors were concerned about speed. Now that's true. The speed issue wasn't as intense as the trustees had made it, as the neighbors had made it out to be. But there is a speed issue, and let's just keep that in mind. The second thing I want you to bring to your attention is the Safe Schools Pathway. And if you look on your document, it's kind of a little bit cumbersome. If you're coming from the east side of Grove, the way it works is you're supposed to go south, to go west, to go north into the school. And what we heard from the community was they don't want to do that. They want to just walk straight across and go west and come from the north side of the building. So this is, I think, one of the main driving points why they wanted a full control instead of a two-way stop sign east-west on Berkshire. So that was, I think, the main driving point why the neighbors really wanted to put an all-way stop sign. Now, certainly, as far as like the traffic toolbox, I can't recommend as a transportation committee other options as suggested by the village engineer. We don't have that in our arsenal, unfortunately. We're working towards that, and maybe at some point in the near future, we're going to be able to present that to you. But for right now, the only thing we have in our toolbox is stop signs, or do nothing, or do enforcement, or some other minor things. So these are the main driving points of why the neighbors really wanted a four-way stop sign. And I don't think it's much more than just that. I think it's essentially it was the traffic generator is to the west, the neighbors live in the east, they want to get to the traffic generator, and it's challenging to get to the traffic generator. And that is essentially the gist of the issue here.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that concerns me is if you leave it up to every resident, they would want to have a stop sign and a cul-de-sac.
I'm glad you want to bring that
And they
point
would
up.
have a speeding bump just close to, and so,
I'm glad
so
you
I
made
just.
that point. Because I have some stuff I want to...
May I please finish my thought?
Certainly.
Go ahead, I'd like to hear
Well,
from you.
because, we talk about the proliferation of stop signs.
Sure.
Here's some factoids I want everyone to really keep this in mind. There are 589 sections in the municipality. Of the 589, 578 are controlled. That means they have a traffic signal, there's a yield sign or stop sign. Of the 589, 498 have stop signs. Mind you, this is the information I received from village staff. In the last 5 years, we have received 12 petitions regarding stop sign petitions. That's about 2% of all the intersections that we have in the municipality. Of the six have been approved. There's no proliferation. That would be irresponsible to make that a proclamation, because the fact of the matter is the numbers don't lie. Yes, I think you're right, Mr. Mayor. I think every citizen would love to have a stop sign on the corner. Just make sure that it doesn't affect me. And when it affects me, make sure it benefits me only. So you're absolutely 100% right. But
I know I'm right.
from our experience, right, from the numbers, from the work that we've been doing, at least in the last 5 years, that's just hasn't been the case. We have not seen a proliferation of stop sign requests.
We appreciate it. Any other questions before we can discuss it on our own here? You have a question for him?
Actually, for Bill.
All right,
Just
please have a seat, sir. Thank you.
what's the expense involved in installing a stop sign?
Stop signs are typically less than $2,000. We have money in the general fund for installing the signage and doing the pavement striping in Public Works.
So not really that expensive?
No.
Thanks, that's
Yeah. Yes, sir. Peter.
So what I'm more interested in is actually tabling this motion or defeating the motion let me change that. I'm more interested in tabling this motion and actually trying some of the other traffic calming, speed calming options that are available to us to see what happens. And give that whatever is a reasonable period of time to see if it can actually affect the change that's going to make it safer for the residents and they can actually feel an improvement before we do this. Because it just seems like this is a bit extreme, and I appreciate that what you just described in terms of people eastern going to west, and I'm sure it's a lot revolving around school drop-off and school pickup. So I can get exactly why it's coming from, but at the same time, I got to believe that those are also primarily parents who are also going to be, they're just not thinking, so that they're doing something that they know they would not want done if it was them walking with their kids to cross the street to get to man's school. So I'd like to at least try to do something else before we actually run to stick in a stop sign, because to your point, once it's there, it is going to be hard to change. And I really appreciate we haven't had a proliferation of these, but at the same time, I'd like to find other ways around it before we stick it in. It doesn't seem like it's at that crucial point. You said there's been one accident there, and that was years ago. I appreciate that there's been sounds like some scares, and we do need to do some things to help address that. But I think some of the traffic calming options you've talked about, I'm more interested in. So Paul can correct me if I'm doing this the wrong way, but I would like to suggest we table this until perhaps 6 months from now, so that we could, with the implication being that we would direct the village manager and staff to try some of these traffic calming devices in the interim, give us a report back, and if it's not working, then perhaps we move forward with this at a later date.
That motion would take precedence if there's a second.
Second.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, though? I'm
I
sorry.
don't think we can talk about it anymore, right, once we table it?
Oh, we can
talk about that motion.
We can talk about
Oh,
that motion.
okay.
The motion
Yeah.
to table, yeah.
Yeah.
No, my only question is, is 6 months an appropriate period of time? Would 3 months do the trick?
We typically do about a 6-month time period where we install stuff. We do a follow-up traffic study. That gives enough time for residents to get accustomed to that improvement, and things will turn back to a steady state, and we could get some real traffic data.
Okay. I think it's a reasonable.
I just pulled 6 months out of the air. I
Yeah,
had
right.
no idea. Didn't know it
You're
was Bill's
right.
actual
Yeah.
number.
Ding,
Okay.
ding, ding.
All right. And there is no vote that is required for this, correct? Is there?
Yep. Yes, we need
Yeah.
a roll call.
There is a vote required?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the motion to table, yes.
Teresa?
Let's see, Barber?
Yes.
Let's see, Brewer, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. But not
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Abu Talib.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
I like how you disagree and still talk to each other. That's good. All right, call to the board.
As usual, register and vote, but I also wanted to salute Housing Forward. I have watched them over the years. I've been a past PADS volunteer, and I have watched the last 3 years that they've put together the strategic plan to address homelessness and affordable housing, and I hope that all of you can come to the launch party on November 9th at the library when they will be formally rolling it out, and look forward to hearing the presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Just really want to sort of echo what the clerk just said in terms of Housing Forward and the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition. It is a fascinating document, and I look forward to it being rolled out and implemented.
Okay, Peter.
There were a couple things that came up in non-agenda public comment that I wanted to make a comment on.
Yes, sir.
One, Emily Valcheva, who brought up the request that we investigate adopting an ordinance that allows bakers to sell up to $1,000 worth of baked goods per month, frankly sounded reasonable to me, and I would be supportive if, assuming that is not a major enterprise to actually bring something of that in and have us approve it, I'd be interested in that. Also assuming staff doesn't see any major flaws that did not come up in the resident's comment. But if it's as clean as she is portraying it, I think that would be a great thing to do. And then I'd like to ask about the pesticide legislation that Mary Erkins was talking about. I'm not familiar with exactly what that was. Is that something that is, this is just open comment. if that's going to be coming toward us, I'd be interested in knowing more about it before we were actually given a proclamation or approval of a resolution or something, because I'm interested in it, but I'm also curious as to exactly what it does and doesn't do before we just move forward with approving it,
Thank you.
if it were going to come to us.
Thanks. Andrea.
I actually have a question for the village manager. We were invited to be partners in a District 97 event on October 18th. Did we choose to do so?
I was not included in that invitation, so I saw it when you both responded after the fact.
Okay.
So I did not do something because I never saw it till after the deadline. So I think they reached out directly to you, and it wasn't something I was copied on.
Well, at any rate.
So I don't know if you all reached directly to them or if you had wanted us to, but we got it after the fact.
I think it's okay, but unfortunately, I don't have the information in front of me, but I wanted to promote it because I know that it will be a well-attended event, and a lot of the jurisdictions are involved. Do you have information about it?
I don't. No, I will have to go back to your
Well,
email.
this is an embarrassing call to the board. All right.
Yeah. You guys can't talk offline on that, right? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
if you forward me what you got. I didn't get the original.
Okay.
All right. Anything
I
else,
might come
Andrea?
back. No, I'm good.
You're good?
That's it.
All right.
I think I would just support Peter's notion for bringing back to the board some notion of looking into this, letter bake type of thing. That's it.
All right, I'd say, just want to say that it is the Jewish New Year, so I just want to say Happy New Year and Happy Holiday. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Good night.